When Mount Vesuvius erupted close to 2,000 years ago, it buried the Roman towns of Pompeii, Herculaneum and Stabiae, as well as many villa sites, under mountains of ash and volcanic debris, preserving them in an extraordinary state. In recent centuries, archaeologists have uncovered these lost settlements and estates, revealing a slightly eerie but informative snapshot into the life of the Roman world. I visited Pompeii and Herculaneum this time 15 years ago, and they were incredible. Definitely two of the most interesting sites I've ever been to. One of the greatest discoveries at these archaeological sites was the library inside a villa at Herculaneum, where hundreds of ancient papyrus scrolls were found in the 18th century. This long-lost library promised a wealth of histories, philosophical tracts, and literature produced by some of the greatest minds of the classical world. But there was one major problem. The heat of the eruption had carbonized the scrolls, leaving them so fragile that any attempt to unroll them would also destroy them. However, now, as a result of breakthroughs in imaging technology and artificial intelligence, researchers have managed to read one entire scroll without even opening it. Over the past decade, artificial intelligence has transformed the study of fragile ancient manuscripts by enabling scholars to read texts without physically opening them. A pioneer of this work is Dr. Brent Seals, whose research has led the development of virtual unwrapping techniques that combine high-resolution X-ray and CT imaging with machine learning to distinguish faint traces of ink from papyrus fibers, even when scrolls are carbonized or tightly rolled. One of the earliest successes came with the virtual unwrapping of the damaged En-Gedi scroll, revealing its hidden biblical text. Building on these advances, researchers have made significant progress in identifying letters, words, and now entire passages within the unopened Herculaneum papyri. Together, these breakthroughs have demonstrated AI's amazing potential to recover historical and literary works that were once thought to be lost forever. AI is not just about talking cats on social media and horrendously inaccurate history videos on YouTube. It does a lot of useful stuff too. The Vesuvius Challenge is an international competition that was launched in 2023 to accelerate the use of artificial intelligence in reading the carbonized scrolls buried by the eruption of Mount Vesuvius in the year 79. Organised by computer scientists, imaging specialists, and classicists, the challenge offers prize funding to encourage the development of machine learning techniques capable of detecting and deciphering ink hidden within unopened papyrus scrolls. The competition has attracted researchers from around the world and has majorly advanced the recovery of previously inaccessible ancient texts. Since its launch in 2023, the Vesuvius Challenge has achieved a number of really interesting milestones. In its first year, researchers recovered enough text to identify more than 2,000 Greek letters across several manuscripts. They also demonstrated that entire columns of writing could be virtually unwrapped and read without physically opening the papyri. Over the past few years, more and more of the scrolls has been revealed throughout the challenge. Now, for the first time ever, Vesuvius Challenge researchers have successfully recovered all of the surviving text from a single unopened Herculaneum scroll. Known as P-Herc 1667 or simply Scroll 4, the papyrus, if unrolled, would stretch for around 1.5 meters. Unfortunately, earlier attempts to unroll the scroll by hand destroyed more than half of it. What's left contains 22 columns of ancient Greek writing. The scroll was discovered during excavations in the 1750s at a spectacular residence thought by many historians to have belonged to Lucius Calpurnius Piso Caesonius, the father-in-law of Julius Caesar. This opulent residence was referred to at the time of the investigations as the Villa Suburbana, but is now known as the Villa of the Papyri. It would have sat by the sea in Roman times, although it's now inland. Although the villa hasn't been fully explored yet, enough information has been gathered over the years to determine that it was richly decorated with colourful frescoes, elegant marble floors, and an extraordinary collection of bronze and marble statues. Most remarkable of all was its library, where around 1,800 carbonised papyrus scrolls were uncovered, the only surviving library from the ancient Greco-Roman world. Using X-ray imaging, AI, and virtual unwrapping techniques, researchers have now been able to read the hidden text without physically opening the scroll. Their findings have been published as a scientific preprint and mark a big milestone in the effort to recover the lost literature of antiquity. Experts in ancient manuscripts known as papyrologists have transcribed and analysed the newly revealed text. It is a philosophical work on ethics, exploring questions about human knowledge, the nature of good and evil, and why reason should guide our actions rather than impulse. These ideas are characteristic of Stoicism, the influential Greek philosophy that emphasizes self-control, rational thinking, and virtue. The handwriting suggests the scroll dates to the 2nd or 3rd century BCE, which makes it one of the oldest scrolls in the collection. Although neither the title nor the author's name survive, scholars believe it may have been written by Chrysippus, one of the most important Stoic philosophers of the ancient world. Supporting this idea is the mention of his nephew and student Aristocreon in the final preserved column of the text. Due to damage, some of the text is fragmentary, but several surviving passages include: "We will inquire into something, but we will not grasp it. If in some way we depart from ourselves and from our own nature, and besides, in the same way as the remaining arts may be said to be perfect in one respect, but to be deficient in another respect, being practical wisdom, having certainly been instructed through research or learning, we will no longer be inferior to them in any respect, accomplishing the appropriate actions as they do and possessing the same practical wisdom as they do. And such being the goods for us, even from the things that are opposed to evils, there will be neither anything good, let alone beautiful, nor anything bad, let alone ugly, nor happiness will be increased or diminished." If it was written by Chrysippus himself, this is quite remarkable because no original material of his survives, only references to his work from other authors. In addition to the decipherment of the surviving parts of P. Herc 1667, the preprint also discussed the scroll P. Herc 139. The researchers were able to recover the name of the author, the title of the work, and the book number from this: Philodemus on Gods, Book 8. Philodemus was an Epicurean philosopher in the 1st century BCE. Epicureanism defines pleasure as the highest good and is centered on a sort of restrained hedonism. This discovery is also significant because up until now, only one book was known from Philodemus's work on gods. The reference to 8 of them indicates that it was made up of at least 8, if not more. This research helps to situate Philodemus's scroll within the context of his other works. So far, 44 scrolls from the library have been identified as the work of Philodemus. Many works also belong to the founder of the school of Epicureanism, Epicurus, and his early followers. The optimized scan protocol used for P. Herc 1667 and 139 also helped to fine-tune work already carried out on the scroll P. Herc Paris 4. Pompeii is the most famous site to have been buried during the year 79 eruption of Mount Vesuvius, but it was not the only one. The work on these scrolls reminds us that Herculaneum, also open to the public, gives us an amazing insight into the lives of ancient Romans. Herculaneum began as a small settlement influenced by the Greek and Etruscan cultures before becoming a prosperous Roman town. Unlike Pompeii, which was a bustling commercial centre, Herculaneum was a quieter and wealthier coastal community, popular with rich Romans who built luxurious seaside villas overlooking the waters of the Bay of Naples. Nowadays, both Pompeii and Herculaneum are 700 and 500 metres inland respectively, but they were once seaside towns. The coastline changed dramatically as a result of the eruption, and other landscape changes since then. Herculaneum itself was first discovered in 1709 when local workers digging a well revealed the remains of an ancient theatre. This discovery spearheaded decades of systematic excavations that would reveal one of the greatest archaeological treasures ever found. Many buildings still preserve their original upper floors, colourful frescoes, intricate mosaics, and wooden architectural features. The House of the Deer, the House of Neptune and Amphitrite, the bath complexes, and the gymnasium provide amazing insights into Roman architecture, engineering, and daily life. Residences in Herculaneum were lavishly decorated and had large gardens. Some even had seafront terraces. Another building that transports us back to day-to-day life in Herculaneum was uncovered near the gymnasium and is known as the Grande Taberna. It would have been a thermopolium, a kind of fast food bar, and featured a marble counter with embedded food jars and an internal seating area, making it a fairly luxurious version of one of these. Over 3/4 of the town still remains buried, giving a sense of just how large and impressive Herculaneum once was. Not much of the public area of the town, such as the Forum, has been excavated. Most of what we can see today belong to the residential and commercial quarters. The theatre, although investigated, still sits underground. Preservation and conservation have been and still are major issues for Herculaneum, not helped by the fact that initial excavations in the 18th century were more like treasure hunts. Now an enormous amount of effort goes into protecting the sites, and this extends further than Pompeii and Herculaneum. Although they are the best known settlements destroyed by the eruption of Mount Vesuvius, they were only part of a much larger landscape affected by the disaster. The fertile volcanic soils around the Bay of Naples supported a network of prosperous towns, luxurious seaside villas, and farming estates, many of which were buried by the eruption and therefore preserved. Among the most impressive are the grand leisure villas built for wealthy Romans seeking to escape the heat and politics of Rome. One of the finest is the Villa Poppaea at Oplontis, an enormous residence famous for its lavish wall paintings, ornamental gardens, fountains, and elegant architecture. Nearby, the Villa of San Marco and the Villa Ariana at Stabiae overlooked the Bay of Naples from dramatic cliffs, offering spectacular views and every luxury expected by Rome's elite. These residences were designed for relaxation and entertainment rather than permanent occupation. Away from the coast, the countryside was dotted with rustic villas that combined comfortable accommodation with agricultural production. Estates such as the Villa Regina at Bosco Reale produced wine, olive oil, and other crops that were exported across the Roman world. Excavations have revealed wine presses, storage rooms, workshops, and living quarters, providing valuable evidence for the economic foundations of the region. Together, these villas and rural settlements demonstrate that the Vesuvian region was far more than a collection of isolated towns. It was a major network of communities linked by trade, agriculture, and maritime connections. And as I mentioned earlier, Pompeii, Herculaneum, and Stabiae were once coastal sites with very active ports. Their preservation has allowed archaeologists to reconstruct not only urban Roman life, but also the broader social and economic landscape that existed before the eruption. If you can't visit Herculaneum in person, you can still explore the site through the official virtual tour. I've included a link in the description below. But if you do get to visit the area, as well as the publicly accessible Roman towns and villas, there is a rather interesting proto-historic site called Longola, around 10 kilometers from Pompeii. Dating to the period between the Middle Bronze Age and the 6th century BCE, the settlement is made up of artificial islands built in a wet environment by the Sarno River, surrounded by canals. Obviously, these buildings are reconstructed, but it would have had hut dwellings made of perishable materials. Artifacts excavated from the site show that its inhabitants were skilled craftspeople, adept at working with metal, bone, glass paste, and amber. The discovery of a dock and 3 canoes suggests its community exchanged goods with other settlements along the river. I think it's great to see what a pre-Roman site in the region would have been like, because we tend to associate this area with all of the wonderful classical period remains. But people had been living in the shadow of the volcano for much longer, and the year 79 was not the first time it erupted. What do you make of these discoveries? Do you think we're on the verge of recovering an entire lost library from the ancient world? And what do you think will be in it? Do you think we'll find something that we weren't expecting? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. One thing I find particularly interesting is what these scrolls tell us about the owner of the villa of the Papyri. If the villa did belong to Lucius Calpurnius Piso Tisonius, there is good evidence that he was associated with Epicureanism and acted as a patron of the philosopher Philodemus, which would explain why so many Epicurean texts have been found there. The newly deciphered scroll, however, appears to be a Stoic work, suggesting that the library may have been more diverse than previously thought. That said, researchers including Federica Nicoladi, assistant professor in papyrology at Naples University, have cautioned that it is still too early to draw firm conclusions about the text's authorship and philosophical classification. As more scrolls are deciphered, our understanding of this collection and the people who assembled it might change. If you enjoyed this video, please hit like. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.